Hi people, it's Archivist here, hope you're doing well, and today I have yet another Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel video for you, but things are looking a little different. We're not playing on my Xbox Series X, instead I'm giving you a little look at the iPhone 13 Pro Max playing Master Duel, because finally Master Duel is available on iOS and Android in the UK, and I also believe America as well, so there's going to be a lot of happy players today, I think. What I was most interested to see in the mobile version was, could they preserve the graphical fidelity that I've noticed in the Xbox version, which is truly superb, it's really smooth, pin sharp, great effects, but could they keep that and put it into a mobile form factor? Which is of course a big challenge because there's a world of difference in terms of the hardware capabilities of a small handheld device versus a big fat box in your living room, right? There's so much more space for thermal optimization, things like that. So crushing it all down so that it can work in a smartphone effectively is not an easy thing to do, but genuinely my impressions, specifically after turning on the high resolution mode, because for me, when I first started playing the game it looked very blurry, but if you go into settings you'll see there's an option to change it to higher resolution, and when you do that, at a glance it really does look like the Xbox version. Very nice looking game. The biggest downgrade I will say, if I have to say one, is that when you have some of the flashier effects like summoning the signature monsters for example, there is an absolutely momentary hiccup when that happens, but it's so minor it's almost not even worth mentioning. I just wanted to point out the one time I did notice, oh, that's a little bit laggier than when it happens on the Xbox, which is perfectly smooth. So a few ripples, but nothing that I'm too concerned about. However, great graphics do come at a cost, of course, and that would be the fact that this game does drain the battery quite aggressively. You can go into the settings and attempt to reduce this, but I found that the detriment to the game is so drastic and the battery savings are so minimal that it's almost just worth leaving it as it is. I just found the stuttering got quite aggressive when I turned it down, so I decided I'll just go with the maximum and enjoy the graphics. But yeah, it definitely does drain the battery quite fast, but not to, I would say, an unprecedented degree. I have seen worse than this in an iOS game before. I think I'd put this on about the same level actually as Call of Duty Mobile, another intense 3D game where it just is going to drain the battery quite fast. So if you're commuting into work and you haven't brought your charger, for example, you might want to consider going into a lower power mode, or maybe not even playing the game initially, because you don't want to leave yourself short of battery, of course. And also, whenever something's draining the battery fast, it inevitably means the device is getting quite hot. This is why I tend to use my phone now with a case. I didn't used to do that, but I find if you play games and your phone is made of metal, or really any material but metal in particular, it can get so hot in your hands from the heat being generated to the point where it's uncomfortable and you start struggling to use the screen a little bit because it's so warm. But I would say the temperatures in this game after playing about 20 minutes, which is about how much I want to play on a mobile device, honestly, the temperatures were tolerable, but I suppose if you went on for about an hour it could get a bit annoying. So I think the thing is, with any mobile game, I think it's best when you're playing them in bursts rather than long sessions. But if you did want to play this in long sessions, I think you would hit the issue of battery life and the issue of heat. There's also the factor of controlling the game, but I wasn't too worried about this because a finger on a touchscreen is quite optimal for playing a game like this. In fact, I might say it's technically better than using a controller where you have to use the D-pad to navigate around to the different cards. So for me at least, it's actually a bit of an upgrade in terms of controlling the game using a touchscreen. Maybe if you're playing on PC and you have the mouse, that might be a downgrade because the mouse is just so quick and easy to precisely get to the cards you want. But yeah, touch, as I expected, is pretty good in the game. Now, one thing I will say though is that naturally it's on a mobile device and therefore it's a smaller screen. In battles, I think it's okay. It's a little bit cramped, and I can imagine if you did have a smaller device like an iPhone mini, things could begin to get a little bit crushed together. But one thing I can't see myself ever doing on my phone is building a deck, because it is so crushed and cramped compared to playing it on the bigger devices that it's just not worth the hassle. It's almost frustrating to try and navigate it. So I can't really blame them. What do you do there? It's a small screen. How do you get your entire deck on the phone? But obviously it's just a downside of playing it on a mobile platform. One thing I do like about Master Duel, especially when you compare it to other mobile games specifically, is that it's very no-nonsense. Like, this didn't stand out on console necessarily, but I've realised that it's a very clean game to get into. So many games, like even Duel Links does this, where you go and log in and then it's throwing a bunch of banners at you saying there's a sale here, you can spend this, oh, get these gems now. Whereas Master Duel, you go in and there is that little window showing you some news updates, maybe it is a deal, but nothing's really being thrown at you. It's more things you can go and check yourself. And when you compare that to, again, other mobile games, it actually comes across as a very classy experience in that way. Plus, even though you do pay to get gems to unlock cards, the experience when you first begin is so generous with gems that even if you've just started playing, you can get a meta deck. And I've heard some people say that's unfair, you shouldn't be able to get a meta deck from the very beginning, but I completely disagree. I think that's what makes this game not pay to win. If you made it so you had to pay to get a meta deck, it would be pay to win. So this game, it kind of isn't pay to win. It kind of is in other ways though, because I suppose you could go in really fresh to Yu-Gi-Oh!, use all your gems up on some basic decks that don't have the best combinations. You realise you're losing and then you're like, oh dear, I've used all my gems up now and I don't have a good deck. Now I need to spend the money, or I have to break down all of my cards and maybe I'll be able to do it then. But yeah, overall, the monetization in this game, like, it's clearly a bit of a gotcha game. Like, you do start to run dry eventually, but I do respect them for allowing you to build really any deck you want for free so that the playing field is leveled. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the experience of Master Duel on mobile. In fact, it's about as good as I could realistically expect it to be. Most of my complaints are things it's very hard to get away from in a mobile game. The screen size, well, there's not much you can do about that. It's a little device. Even if it's a foldable phone, it's not going to be that much bigger. I guess you can, of course, play on tablet, which would help out with some of that, though you might find that things like the deck editor are still a little bit cramped because they're designed for the iOS devices, if you know what I mean, or the Android devices. The battery drain, it's not ideal, but it's not making it unusable. It's not going to stop me from wanting to play it, but it's something I have to be aware of. It's worse than Duel Links, for example, but Duel Links is a much more basic game, so it's just the price you pay, unfortunately, for a game that looks good on mobile. I suppose one thing about Master Duel on mobile that maybe makes it a little bit worse than Duel Links is that because the matches take a lot longer, it's not as great for those burst moments of gaming, which is key, I think, when it comes to good mobile games. Because let's say I'm on the train going to work and I know I need to get off in about 15 minutes. Well, I think I could try and play a game of Master Duel to pass the time, and that would be great. But if I decide to go online, what if my opponent starts taking a really long time to make a move? Even the match that I happen to be showing you here, it was the very first match I played online, and the guy was taking forever, and the match actually ended up taking about 14 minutes to complete. I might cut bits out if I have to try and reduce it a little bit in this video, but it took a total of 14 minutes before it was finished. And that isn't necessarily ideal when it comes to mobile gaming, because you might only have a few moments to play something. There is, of course, a solo mode in the game, which I think would be more ideal for that sort of thing. You don't have to worry about just pausing it or stopping for a moment. But I don't think, in my personal opinion, the solo mode is that replayable in this game, especially as it's not very rewarding once you've gone through once and got all the initial gems. So one thing I really think they need to consider doing with Master Duel is give you a more compelling reason to play the solo mode more. Like, maybe if you come back, you will eventually get some more gems that you can use to get cards that you can grind out. I think that's something that's lacking at the moment. It wants you to grind out online, but again, especially when you're on mobile, it's just not always that practical to commit to a 14, or, you know, I genuinely, on one game on console, took me about 45 minutes before it ended, and I just can't imagine playing that on mobile, really. I mean, your battery will be ripped apart by that point, and it's just not practical for the kinds of scenarios I need, at least the scenarios I'm in, that I'm playing Master Duel. Of course, there are other scenarios, like maybe if you're sitting on the couch, you don't have as much of a time pressure, you just want to be playing it, then it's not much of a problem. Maybe you want to give it to your kids and you want to have the TV, again, not as much of an issue. So it depends on why you mobile game, but for me, I often find I'm doing it in burst amounts, and this game isn't great for burst amounts. You do kind of have to commit to it a little bit. So these have been my initial thoughts on Master Duel on iOS. I've been enjoying it so far, but going forward, I think most of the time I will be returning to my Xbox Series X. I just like to sit back in my chair, relax, and play on a big screen. I might try it out a little bit on iPad though. I can kind of see myself sitting, lounging around, maybe in front of the TV, playing it. I'll have to see there. But yeah, not a bad effort, but maybe some room for improvement when it comes to optimizing battery while retaining these amazing visuals. So, as always, people, thanks very much for watching and see you next time.